Okay, great. So welcome back to session 7, which is about routes to impact. And before we go any further, I just wanted to highlight the fact that we're very lucky to have Rebecca Osborne here, our graphic, what's it called? A graphic recording. A graphic recording. And when we were just talking to Rebecca about how this works, she was saying that you can relax, you don't need to take notes, you can close your notebook and you can watch everything being recorded here live, graphically. You're welcome to take photos of it as we go along and at the end. And yeah, hopefully it will be a really fun way of recording what we've discussed today and pick up some points that you wouldn't necessarily pick up by just writing words on a page. So thank you, Rebecca. And let's look forward to seeing how that looks. I won't be able to see it from here, but hopefully she's not writing. Apparently she uses asterisks rather than rude words, so we're going to be all right. It's going to be very polite. Oh, she's just given me a look, so I'm in trouble already. Right, so what I was saying this morning in the welcome was I was just mentioning what Angler Innovation Partnership is all about. I'm the Chief Exec of Angler Innovation Partnership. It's the campus management company for Norwich Research Park, and the board is the directors and the Vice Chancellor of the University and the Chief Exec of the hospital, the John Innes Foundation and BBSRC. And the vision is to maximise the impact of publicly funded research. And our role is to really work with you, work with industry, encourage enterprise activity and support collaboration and community development. And so it's great to chair this session because we're hopefully bringing to life some of the work that's going on here that has an impact already, and hopefully it will inspire you to think about ways that your work that you're currently engaged with, maybe collaborating with others across the campus, how that could have impact. And like I said in the intro before, AIP is here to support you on your journey if you want to look at commercialising your ideas. We would encourage you to go through iCure, and we have funding that you can apply for beyond that, so you don't have a gap between setting your idea up. We can help you set a company up. We can help you to get seed funding. So don't be shy coming forward, and please ask questions about this of our panel. So there's many different ways to, really make an impact through the work that we do. And this slide here is just a slide that I use to explain the fact that we're in 4 global markets. So the work you do is really relevant and interesting to industrial biotechnology, agri-biotech, food biotech, and the medtech markets. They're the 4 lines through the middle, and then there's the kind of links back through to the research, some of the companies that have to be here to do what they do, and the orange bit on the right hand side is really just the subset definitions of those markets. So, and the thing that we can do, as I mentioned this morning, is we can think about helping the world with that transition from petrochemical to biochemical, and doing that in agriculture, doing that in drug discovery, doing that in human health. And all of those topics are really relevant to, life on the planet today. And, it's exciting that we've got so much interest from investors, real estate investors, venture capitalists, and government in this country to support this. So we're looking at the fact that impact can be to do with enterprise activity, encouraging researchers with an idea to come forward for assessment and go through iCure. We can also support spin-ins from other clusters like Colorifix, who you're going to hear from. There's the chance to work with industry. We have a Explorer Forum format where we can get people like British Sugar or Bayer or Unilever or Danone or Nestle or whoever who want to come in, who have an industry problem, and they know that they get round the table with you in a facilitated discussion, you'll come up with genius ways of solving those problems and moving them on. So we work with industry partners to create those Explorer Forum facilitated discussions. Obviously, you can license IP through work of organisations like PfBIO, help with that, and the universities, departments. And then there's the global projects where we're developing understanding and we're looking at how to address global issues. And I think one of the other ways we can really make a difference is inspiring young people, not just thinking about us today and how all of this stuff benefits us, but how can we inspire young people to follow where we've taken a lead, and so that we can look back and be proud of what we've achieved and see others taking all that further. So we're going to hear from 4 microbiologists today. They're going to talk about their journey and their current projects. You saw this slide earlier. Really, this is just taking what industries we work in and who's here through to how do we do this. And as I said this morning, it is about people. It is about how we can work with each other. And if you feel frustrated that you don't know enough of the right people on the campus to work with, please come and talk to us about that, because we all want to help make sure we have good interaction across all the institutes, the university and the hospital, to really maximise all the work you do and inspire you to do more. So without further ado then, what we're going to do in this session is I'm going to invite each of the 4 speakers up. They've got a short presentation. We'll take 1 or 2 questions, if anyone has a burning question, for that presenter immediately. And then after the 4 presentations, we'll come up onto the platform and we'll have an interactive discussion. Okay. So the first speaker is Beth Williams. And Beth is a lecturer in microbiology at UEA and says that she's passionate about all areas of micro and molecular biology. And before this, Beth was a senior researcher in an environmental biology lab at UEA. Beth, welcome to the platform.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Most of my career could probably be summed up by what Ros has just introduced, but I'll go through a little bit of how I got here, and then mostly I just want to talk about the things that I'm really excited for with the kind of potential with the CMI and what it can do for kind of the potential in teaching and kind of, the future of microbiology. So I've got some very cheesy pictures. I didn't think about how big they were going to be on the screen, so I'm going to have some embarrassing photos of me, but I am a very loyal UEA participant. I came here in 2011. I did biological sciences as an undergraduate, and I graduated in 2014. I then went on to do a PhD in Jonathan Todd's lab. That was finishing in kind of end of 2018, graduating in 2019 with my PhD. The majority of it was on, as I'm sure everyone that's heard talks from John's research, was on sulfur and sulfur cycling in salt marsh environments. And then because I'm a glut for digging around in the dirt, I then did a postdoc in the similar topics. And I spent several years regularly sampling Blakeney salt marsh for those kind of key microorganisms that cycle that sulfur and those other compounds as well. So throughout my career as a PhD, a postdoc, even a little bit when I was a student, I really found a lot of kind of a creative outlet in the outreach aspects of science. So I loved getting involved in open days. I did as a student ambassador, and then as a PhD student, I helped to kind of advertise the microbiology stand, and we had great fun thinking of ways that we could demonstrate microbiology in a kind of like a 5-minute presentation, because we don't always have, a lot of the microbiology is put something on and let it grow for a week, and that can be quite hard to represent, and that kind of, how to get that excitement of microbiology across. When my postdoc came to an end in 2022, I then kind of felt that I'd reached the end of where I wanted to go with research, and I realized that I was more interested in the kind of potential of outreach and then also teaching. So since 2022, I've been employed as a lecturer in microbiology at UEA. Quite a short progression, really. I do still often get mistaken for a student when waiting to go into the lectures. But I think it's quite nice for students to be able to see how quickly, somewhere where I was a little bit more than 10 years ago now, they can also kind of see how quickly you can reach those levels of quite specific knowledge in microbiology. So just a kind of brief cover of what I teach. I run as a lecturer in microbiology and on our microbiology degree, which is our kind of new degree that we're trying to make work at UEA, obviously with the highest concentration of microbiologists in the country. If it can't work here, where can it work? So I run two Year 2 microbiology modules, environmental micro and medical micro. Some of you out there I have press ganged into teaching on it, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I really appreciate the fact that I can advertise to students how they are getting knowledge kind of straight from the top, from the source, kind of guest lecturers and lecturers in UEA who are doing the research that we are studying. I also teach on some other modules, biodiversity, and particularly science communication, which is where those two passions are kind of colliding. And I run a bunch of microbiology group labs. As I said, I'm also very interested in the outreach, and something that I appreciate about what I do now is that I get a chance to also take kind of the science outwards. I think one of the big problems is that microbiology in general isn't really taught as a topic in kind of before university. They really only ever hear about it in the sense of communicable diseases and maybe a little bit on the nitrogen cycle, but they don't really see it as being its own kind of topic. I love letting the kind of creative side of me out. We do quite a lot with the Norwich Science Festival. We just did a science-themed escape room, which was great fun. And you see my collection of giant fluffy microbes, which is pretty much a prerequisite for being a microbiologist these days. I've also done a couple of different talks for the Science Festival, for a couple of other festivals on kind of the secrets of the seaside, particularly the kind of smell of the seaside and that sulfur compounds. And I've done talks for Channel Talent, which is a kind of part of UEA-run idea, giving A-level students a chance to experience university teaching. I also run various kind of lab-based workshops and summer schools. Some around my particular passion at the moment is that not all microbes are pathogenic, and kind of talking about getting students and kids to really appreciate the breadth of microbes and what they do for us. And so I've got a couple of workshops designed around that. So now the last thing that I'm kind of talking about is the things that I feel like we could do with the CMI and what the CMI could do to maybe start some conversations. I particularly, as I said, I feel like it's at the school level where we don't really maximise on the fact that we are microbiologists and the importance of kind of microbes and learning that language of what microbes actually impart on our planet. So I would like to, I'm kind of in discussions with running workshops that visiting schools can come to and kind of experience a day as a microbiologist. Again, the challenge of then having things growing and letting them see them, but with the joys of the internet, hopefully we can send lots of gross pictures of plates. I also have a couple of friends who are in kind of high school teaching, and I'm very keen to do some sort of more accessible content for people outside of Norfolk, so downloadable lesson plans perhaps with slides and maybe printables for schools to have a kind of lesson or two that's kind of pre-designed, takes that extra work out, but also gives them that kind of starting point for the things that we might be able to do with microbiology. I'm also a very big fan of board games and gamification in general, so I would love to either collaborate or help people if they have an idea for microbial-based board games or tabletop games. I've designed a microbial top trumps, if anybody is keen to have a go playing that. But yes, very excited about the potential of these things. And I'd also like to start a podcast. Ideally, it will be student-led so that people don't have to hear me talking all the time. But I would also be very keen for that to be with people across the NRP talking about what they're currently studying and what their kind of how that relates to like news in microbiology, kind of in current topics. Yeah, I think that's all they're my kind of ideas. That's what I do. I'm very excited about everything we could go with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beth. One of the things that you said there was about engaging with school-age pupils and teachers. And I know that there's the first Norfolk Science Teaching Conference on the 6th of March here, which I think the JIC's organised, and Felicity Perry. I know I've been asked to go along and say something. So it'd be good if you didn't know about that. That's on the 6th of March, and we can probably get that information over to you all. So is there any immediate questions anyone has for Beth? I was going to just bite your hand off for the podcast, actually, and say, yeah, I think the UEA must have the ability to produce really good podcasts.
I think
You've got creative people, as well as everybody that, we get every single one of the people here.
That's a lot of episodes.
That's a lot of podcasts, yeah?
I think it would be great fun.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll have more conversations later. Thanks, Beth. So I'm just compiling a page of questions as well as making sure I get my introductions right. By the way, I took these introductions off of LinkedIn, so I did say to them all, whatever you have on there is what I'm using. So when it says disco dancing and fire eating, that's what I'm going to have to say. So James is not a fire eater or a disco dancer. Well, he might be in his spare time. So James is an entrepreneur in residence at the Sainsbury Laboratory, a founder of the charity GetGenome, and that was in 2022. And the aim of this is providing researchers with equitable access to genomic technology and genomic-related education. James, you're very welcome. Let's do clapping in between.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Ros. And thank you all for your attention. It's a real pleasure for me to contribute to this session. I really hope I can. So yeah, my name is James Canham. I'm an entrepreneur in residence, and I'm based at the TSL, where I am in the TSL Ventures program. I'm happy to discuss that a little bit later as well. And my day-to-day role is to manage GetGenome, which is our non-profit organisation that is sitting within TSL and has span out of the lab. Before I get on to GetGenome, I want to just give you a bit of a background on me. I spent 10 years out of education and decided to return to full-time education to study plant sciences at UEA. And then subsequently, I completed my PhD in Saskia's lab, actually at the John Innes Centre, and I was studying the interactions between plants and herbivorous insects. And it was during this time that I had the amazing opportunity to complete my PIPS, so professional internship, in Kenya. And actually, a few weeks before I arrived in Kenya, my project fell through. The insurance company said, "You're not doing that." So I had a clean slate, which was an amazing opportunity. And at the start of that placement, I was a part of a summer school. And it was there that I learned about an emerging challenge that coconut growers were facing. And this actually, funnily enough, is a phytoplasma-induced disease, coconut lethal yellows disease. It's as bad as it sounds. The leaves fall off and the coconuts unfortunately die. And it was a major concern for growers in Kenya at the time. Now, I started discussions with KEFIS, who are essentially the DEFRA of Kenya, about how they might be able to use genomics as a way to surveil for the pathogen. So this pathogen was spreading from Mozambique up through Tanzania, and it was right on their borders. And it was there I really, by starting this project, and I'm really proud of the work we did. I mean, of course, I had the enthusiasm of a PhD student thinking that you can solve the world's problems in 3 months. But It did give me an insight into the challenges that they face, particularly when they want to utilize state-of-the-art technologies to progress their research. And when I returned to the UK, I started discussions with Sofian, who's a group leader in TSL, of course, and what I learned was that Sofian had also considered these barriers and he's essentially gone further than I had to try to sort of formalize support for particularly Global South researchers. So that's really where GetGenome was born. So what do we do? Well, at our core, we empower researchers. And the way we do that is we provide them with access to genomics technology and training, education. Many of you will use AdGene, so you might be somewhat familiar with our bottom-up workflow. We develop a campaign, a call for projects where we ask researchers from across a region to apply for our support. They deposit their organisms with us and we generate the genomic sequences and provide that back to them free of charge. We then support them in sharing that data with the scientific community, and then we bring them all together under one network. So that's what we do. This is an example. So this is our most mature campaign that we've ran. We launched back in 2022-23 in Tunisia. As a part of this call, we supported around 30 primarily early career researchers, and we provided them with over 130 whole genome sequences. And what's really amazing is that the majority of these sequences are now sitting on NCBI, and this cohort has published several dozen genome announcement papers. Sometimes it's the only scholarly output they might generate from a master's or a PhD project. So, of course, we found ways to interact with this community, with this network, and through online workshops and in-person workshops, as well as contributing to conferences, etc., we've been able to keep them enthusiastic and engaged in the process. And we're building an online reservoir, essentially, an open resource through our Zenodo community, where we house all of these genome announcement papers. Our YouTube channel is growing all the time, and that's helped by the launch of our seminar series this year. Importantly, and perhaps uniquely, GetGenome relies on local expertise and contribution. We find that when we bring together otherwise disparate group leaders, professors, stakeholders, and we ask them to manage the call. And there's nobody better, obviously, to manage local research, or national research, than those that know it best. So this has generated unique interactions between these researchers that would otherwise not happen, which is really great. Fast forward to today, and I don't know if your eyes can adjust and see the pins. Each of these pins represents an institute where we are supporting researchers. We're working across the Global South in more than 20 countries today, and have generated more than 500 whole genome sequences for researchers. So this is a clip from a bigger presentation that we gave. It was contributed by a number of our awardees, and I think Susan Benkader, an associate professor in Tunisia, I think she nicely sort of summarizes and highlights the importance of GetGenome and similar initiatives. You'll have to excuse the uplifting music. It's for impact.
We need to improve our skills and to be more independent in genomic analysis and sequencing, because it's the future. I think it's important when we do collaboration to be equal partners. So we can share equally, to be taken seriously with our partner, not because we lack some skills or expertise that we are not good enough. One of the best things with GetGenome, we are more independent in our genomic studies, and it gives us more resilience as researchers.
You do notice I'm in a shirt and everybody else is in heavy jackets. It's December in Tunisia, it's about 20 degrees. It's a perk of the job. Obviously, GetGenome wouldn't exist without the amazing support of partners, TSL and Gatsby, of course, but also our board of trustees who have been very dedicated to drive our charity forward. And of course, we rely on expertise, teams of people, associates, not just at home here, but also identifying talent and dynamic people from across the global south that helps push the charity forward. So I want to thank all of them and thank you for your attention. I'm happy to contribute to the discussions, and hopefully we can have a nice interaction later. Thank you.
Does anyone have a quick question for James at this stage? No? Okay, thanks very much, James. That's really great.
Okay. Hi, so I'm going to talk to you about Colorifix and our attempt to have an impact on the fashion industry. To reintroduce myself, I am the Senior Strain Engineer at Colorifix. I have a background in molecular biology and biochemistry and a systems biology PhD, and in between that I worked on yeast regulatory networks and the bioproduction of chemicals and on animal vaccines, which was a bit of a zigzag, before starting at Colorifix around 4 years ago. So Colorifix is the biotech company on the site. We are in the Innovation Centre and at the LMA Barnes building over by the Quadrum, and we're working on developing a biological process to replace the use of chemical dyes in dyeing textiles. The company was founded by these two, which is Jim Agioka and Ori Arconi, who were from Cambridge at the time, and developing a colour-changing biosensor for contamination in drinking water. While they were in Nepal and Bangladesh testing out their biosensor, they were speaking to the people who were dealing with the polluted water and asking what had caused it. And the answer they got a lot of the time was, it's the textile industry. There's dyeing plants upstream and they're putting their waste straight into water. So instead of continuing their project with the biosensor, they switched to a route that they were hoping would have more impact, which is that they were going to go to the root of the problem, which is unfortunately one of the largest and most complex issues facing one of the largest and most complex industries in the world. The textile industry is one of the most polluting industries in the world, with 1/4 of the world's chemicals by volume going into it, over 1 billion tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions, 4 to 10% of carbon emissions, and 9 trillion litres of water used every year. And the worst step involved is dyeing and wet processing, putting the colour on the clothing, which takes more than 70 chemicals and 5 trillion litres of water. And in the process, 200,000 tonnes of dyes are lost annually to effluents, or to put it another way, end up in your water. So our solution is to go to nature and look for the pigments in nature and try and use those. From a sky-high perspective, we go and find a pigment in nature that we like. We look for the DNA recipe to make it. We stick it in a bacteria. We grow the bacteria up in a vat, exactly as if we were brewing some beer. And then we dunk our clothes in the vat and get coloured clothes out of it. So super simple process. For strain engineering, I'm focused on the parrot to vial stage of the process. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And we take an engineering approach and use the DBTL cycle. So that's design, build, test, and learn. In the design stage, we will be identifying the colours in nature and looking for the biosynthetic pathways that will get us there. We do this using databases and literature searches, retrosynthesis, AI-guided protein design is coming in. So we're doing it all electronically. We don't have to go and find an endangered parrot and stick it in a test tube. We don't need to use the natural producers. The second step is the build stage. So we'll be acquiring our synthetic DNA, building it up in this modular assembly platform that allows us to build the genes up together, and then the transcriptional units, and then branching out into bigger pathways, which allows for optimization and adaptability of the pathways as well. Very handy. You can see why the bacteria did it that way. And then we do my favorite step, the transformation. Stick the DNA to the bacteria, go home, come back the next day. Hopefully your plates are all different colors. The next we get to the test stage. So the analytics team will have a look at our cultures and see, have we made what we think we've made? Is it a good yield? The coloration team will try the dyeing out on a variety of fabrics in a variety of conditions. And in the analytics stage, the learning stage, we try to learn from our answers. So can we optimize the yield? Can we optimize the strain? Can we optimize the process? Can we optimize the pathway? After turning in circles a few times, we've hopefully got a robustly producing bacteria, which can then go into the scaled up fermenters, the fourth picture on that flow chart. And then these can go, the culture with the pigment can then go into the industrial dyeing machine and is transferred to the fabric by a heat step. The heat also inactivates the microbes. So this works for yarn dyeing, fabric dyeing, and garment dyeing. And we're currently working on a process to concentrate the pigment and organisms into a dye paste, which is also heat inactivated. And then this can be used for textile printing. The bioreactors I wanted to mention a little bit because when Colorifix started, we were intending to just have people choose their own bioreactors, but it turns out that's not quite so simple. Bioreactors aren't really intended to be used in such a dirty environment as a dye house, and if people all got different bioreactors, we'd have to constantly be re-optimizing our strains and processes for them, so we ended up selling our own bioreactors to simplify the process. And yeah, they have a bunch of innovations that make them easier and simpler for synthetic biology, and they are also available on this website separately from our whole dyeing process if anyone is interested to read more about them. So there we go, we sell the bioreactors. Have I pressed the button? Yeah, we sell the bioreactors to the dye houses, and we send our team to do on-site implementation, which means we send them a vial, they have to buy the media, and then we show them how to grow up their own culture. So they're now growing their own pigment on site. This can go straight into the existing dyeing equipment, and it's just a change of program. You don't have to add all the same chemicals as with the conventional dyeing, and you don't have to go as high for as long, but basically it's the same program and the same equipment, so you don't have to fire your staff and train a whole bunch of new people, which is great because we're avoiding a bit of negative impact there. So having avoided some negative impacts, I want to look at the positive impact of our process. This is a third-party life cycle assessment comparing conventional dyeing to the Colorifix process on polycotton, which is the most commonly dyed fabric. And we have some good numbers there, an 80% reduction in chemicals, a 31% saving on carbon dioxide emissions, 77% less water consumed, 53% less electricity, and 71% less natural gas consumed. So that's all great as long as people are using it. And we have had some collaborations with brands that you may or may not have heard of that are producing clothes that go to market. So before I started at Colorifix, I had actually only heard of H&M, but the other two are also producing or have produced collections of clothing using our process. But we actually interact a lot with dye houses, so these won't be names that you've seen on the labels of clothes because they don't make the clothes, they just make the fabrics, which other people then make clothes out of. And some of these are people who are making the media for us and variously otherwise involved in the process. So what about collaborations? We have had some exciting projects collaborating with different research groups, including some on the research park. So I'll talk about a handful of collaborations that we've done. The first one is a research park one. We collaborated with the Earlham Biofoundry to use high throughput microfermentation and RNA sequencing to better understand our chassis and the pathway we were developing at the time, which produced in increased yields. We're very happy with that one. During the pandemic, we had another little pivot where we tried to make functionalized fabrics. So a bunch of our pigments were known to be antiviral, and we thought antiviral face masks might be handy. So we teamed up with the Fruck Lab in Cambridge, who were the ones doing the actual virology testing with the fabric that we dyed with our antiviral dyes. We've teamed up again with the same lab. We're currently working on something with fabric surface modifications using tailored versions of our dyes, and a more unusual collaboration with the Central St Martin's College in London, where we have sponsored a PhD project by our artist in residence and designer Ruth Lloyd, who is in charge of developing the pigment dye paste process that I mentioned earlier. So lots of various different exciting things and lots of different directions that we're happy to go in. So if you have any ideas or for collaborations, feel free to get in touch. Any questions?
Thank you. Is there any quick questions before we get into the discussion? Okay, so if I could ask the other panelists to come and join me on the platform, maybe a couple of you bring mics. We don't need all of them necessarily, but because we can share them, but bring a couple. And if you want to come and join me up here, I'll sit on the end so I can see everyone. And maybe don't quite sit in a row, otherwise you can't see each other either, right? Move that round a bit so you can see. That's it. That's better, isn't it? Sam, did you have... Oh, sorry, I was supposed to move that on. Apologies. Okay, so I've got a few questions prepared, as all good panel chairs need to do, but I'm going to see if has anyone got a question they want to pose first, or shall I warm us up? Oh, we have a question here. Fantastic. Go for it.
Thank you. I have a question for Kate, actually. So it was a really lovely talk. So as I understand it, the dye is still going to go into the water that you're making. Is that correct?
So during our process, we will collect the dye waste and test how much dye is in it. And what we found is that actually most of the dye does stick to the fabric. We are making physically different molecules than the conventional dye. So we don't use such harsh chemistry to attach it to the fabric. We're picking ones that attach to the fabric. So for the most part, our water is actually very clean. It has been tested as safe enough to go directly in the water supply, although would prefer if people do clean it up before they do that anyway.
Any other questions like that? I had a question for you, Kate, and it's really to do with the fact that you were saying, obviously you had an academic career before working for Colorifix. So would you be able to just tell us a bit about what it's like working in a company like Colorifix compared to being in academia, sort of the pros and cons? 'Cause for these people here to think about what's the difference between what your life was like when you were in their situation and what it's like now.
Colorifix is actually quite similar to one of the jobs I had, which was another synthetic biology startup. And I do think the vibes are very similar. We had a startup vibes, the sort of enthusiasm of the team and the fact that you sort of end up doing 101 different things because there isn't someone whose job is to do that, so someone else does it, sort of thing. Compared to academia, I think there is a emphasis on fail fast, for one thing, which is we don't have time, we can't get anything out of a thing that doesn't go somewhere. So in academia, you could publish that it didn't go anywhere or that you could make progress along the way, but the last step didn't work. If you're in a startup, you need to get to the money-making step, so you just try the hardest thing first. If that fails, you don't do the rest of it. Right. I guess might be a big difference.
Yeah. And what about the scope to do sciencey stuff that you enjoy compared to, like you say, if, you have to work to deadlines, you have a runway, you have targets from investors. How much is that a good thing or a bad thing from your perspective?
It can be a downside if you, I can have tunnel vision sometimes and get very fixated on, I'm sure I can make it work. And sometimes need a reminder to just, do we really need to make it work? There are other things we could do. So yeah, not being able to get personally the satisfaction of getting to the end of a project if it's decided top down that it's not going to be profitable, might be one of the downsides. But there's so many projects to do.
Yeah, that's the thing, there's plenty for you to do. I think one of the things that Orr was explaining to me is that you need to find the colour black.
Yes, we have a good yellow, a good blue, we have a good pink. We haven't got like the proper deep red yet, but we're getting there. And black is the most challenging colour. because it needs to be the depth of colour as well. And we're getting there. We have some things that have produced black, but they have been unsatisfactory in other ways. They didn't have the good light fastness, or they used an additive that we thought was too bad that we didn't want to include. But we're getting there. It's a work in progress.
I think all was saying that a lot of clothes, like 80% of clothes is black, you know.
Yeah, black is the most common colour, I think. Lots of people wearing black. Blue would be the next common. I think that pretty much covers everyone.
We are representing green today, so.
Oh, and representing for the green today as well.
Yeah, and the green, well done. Any questions? I can keep going until you come up with something. Yeah, is there one? Oh, great, here we go, there's two. Okay, let's start with the one closest to you. The man in the, it's not black, it's blue.
Double blue.
Thank you.
It's another question about the pigments. So some pigments from nature could potentially be harmful compounds. So do you test for toxicity at all when you're engineering your things?
Yeah, so I'm actually one of my many startup roles, the biosafety officer, and that was one of the things that we put into place was having initially we have a literature search to make sure that if there's any reported effect, we already know in advance, so we don't go ahead with that pigment. And we do have a stage before the scale up where we test, we send for cytotoxicity testing and stuff like that to make sure that we're not making something that will give you a rash when you put it on, that kind of thing.
There was another question just a bit further back behind you there.
Am I all right to ask Beth a question?
Please.
Is that all right? So I'm really into outreach, as you know, and I love the work you do with outreach, what you've done recently as well. With the different festivals, so there's one, was it the Festival of Light that I saw? How did you get in touch with them? Did they reach out to you? And what would your advice be to other people in the room who want to get involved with outreach? How do you get onto those opportunities and how do you get involved?
Great question.
Great, yeah. Well, my main piece of advice is to say yes to everything. Is the way that I started getting known for kind of being involved in outreach, is sort of getting involved in every opportunity that got offered. A lot of it does end up being word of mouth, which can be a good thing if you're kind of on people's radar. But yeah, I mean, the Light Festival was a kind of connection through a lab group that we're working with Climate UEA. So a lot of it is kind of making yourself known to groups that are, so for example, people like Colorifix or PfBIO or GetGenome that maybe want to be involved in kind of outreachy things so that you're on people's radar as someone that's interested in it. And then, yeah, I think the more, I mean, things like you did the Norwich Science Festival last week, doing that kind of, you know, the dreaded networking of going around the other stalls and kind of putting your name forward for things. But yes, at the moment, there's not really a nice kind of central place where you can kind of put your name forward for being involved in outreach. But yeah, it's just all about kind of any opportunity you can see. Quite often there's things on kind of email bulletins or, yeah, I mean, if you are interested, then Sam's a very good resource to kind of make yourself known to him. I'm sure he doesn't mind me volunteering.
So we didn't organise this, Beth, did we? But really, if Beth's happy to help field with some advice, I'm happy to be the one that you email to say I'm interested. AIP supports school outreach programmes, and all of the institutes and the University Hospital, they do various different things, different times of the year. My bit is to promote this place as somewhere that anyone can get a job, and there's all kinds of jobs. That's what we were doing during Norwich Science Festival. And, you know, I want all kids getting their education in the area to think, oh, I could get a job at Norwich Research Park, you know, build the buildings, run events, be a scientist, be an entrepreneur, work for a cool company, whatever it might be. And I actually went to a school recently where they asked what are the undergraduate degrees in microbiology, and if I'd known your name, I could have had a quicker answer. So maybe between the two of us, we could say anyone in this room who's interested, email me at AIP, and then we can talk about all the opportunities out there. This is great, you know, willing volunteers is what we're looking for. So it's a great question. Okay. I have a question for Rosaria, because Rosaria and I met probably back in 22, and you were talking a bit about your passion and the work that you do. And I remember meeting you at the Royal Norfolk Agricultural Show, and you'd just come back from maternity leave, and you were on the ICURE programme, and you were on a stand and on the phone getting advice. And I just thought, my goodness, this woman, I can't believe all the things that you're managing, and you've continued to do it. It's been amazing to watch.
That's how I started. I was already super busy. That's when I started. Yeah.
So do you want to talk a bit about the support you've had and the funding and, you know, that sort of aspect of raising money and getting support?
And I think I can also follow up the first question that you have about how the difference between academics, because of course PfBIO is a small company. Well, we started in 2022, and we started everything from scratch. So there is a huge difference for me as an individual to be in a early stage spin-out company compared to a medium or small, medium, large company, but is already established. Because of course, what is one of the most important thing for us is looking for funds as well. And if I don't have money, I cannot pay the salary of people, I cannot do the research and so on. So then I need to build up everything, that included. So of course, if you work in academia as a postdoc, as I was, you don't need to worry so much about looking funds to pay your salary. While if you work as a founder at the beginning, that is priority, and then it will be priority as a CEO later on as well. So just to follow up on that question and answering your question as well, yes, I mean, as I told you, I was a postdoc in an academic lab, but then I joined a startup, but still as a research scientist. And I start to have an idea about how the operation in a startup could be. But then when you become an owner, you just learn through experience. And I tried to gather all the supports I could, it was available around me. So I did lots of different courses, including the BBSRC ICURE program. That is the one I was involved in. I was in the call when you saw me for the first time at the Royal Norfolk show. That allowed me, for example, to understand a bit better the market I was operating, allowed me to identify the sector I wanted to focus to start with. And for example, all the research we did for the strawberry market, for the strawberry sector, everything came out from the ICURE program. Because I contacted lots of people, lots of farmers, agronomists, and other people operating in the agriculture sectors, try to understand their needs, what they really need, what kind of products they need, and the value of what I can create. And I made basically a list of the crops and the disease, the problems that they have, and make decision on that. So after that 3 first months, I actually learned about. Of course, not about everything, but at least I had an indication of what is the market potential out there for PfBIO. And then, of course, everything has been like a day-to-day learning as well. I did another program that is called the Hello program from Anglia Capital Group. In that case, for example, I understand more about how to pitch to investors, how to tell a story to investors, that making business presentation is very different from academic presentation, for example. So I'm learning a lot, and that is the driving force for me at the moment, because I really do like this journey of learning new things and new skills.
And I think Anglia Innovation Partnership learnt a lot from the first cohort that we worked with yourself and Kat Edwards and Josh Colmer and others that all were starting companies at the same time. We realised really quickly that these people have amazing science acumen, but they don't have the business acumen to match, and that we needed to help somehow. And Sam's here, actually. I think Sam can give a wave. Sam Graham, she's our enterprise network manager, is making a massive difference to the help and support that we can give the new startups. So probably you had the bumpiest ride, I'm afraid, because you didn't have the support of Sam right at the very beginning, and you didn't have people like yourself who've just been through the programme. I noticed today that Felicity Knowles at TraitSeeks put a LinkedIn post out about how to get grant funding, and there's a lot of support out there that we've now organised. So if any of you think of going through IKEA and have an idea, we've now got a ready-made programme that's being tried and tested by people like Rosaria. So thank you, Rosaria, for your patience. You learnt the hard way, but still, you've enjoyed it. That's the point.
Yeah, let's say the right word is excitement, right?
And James, leading, one of the things that Rosaria said that when you go from academia into being a founder, you have to worry about how you're going to pay your salary. And I think the question for me really is, if you're a not-for-profit and you're essentially trying to give know-how away for good reasons, how do you manage to fund that? And also, I think if you could touch on when do you make a choice about being a commercial private company or a not-for-profit?
So in terms of funding, we couldn't have done what we've done without the support of the lab and the Gatsby Foundation. So our institutes are, I think all of them are probably non-profits, right? They're charitable organizations. So there's an awful lot of synergy and overlap with our purposes with TSL and with the broader science park. So, empowering researchers, promoting education, supporting education around the world. So there was a lot of overlap. So naturally, I think we're very attractive for example, grant-giving charities. So we did some work in Pakistan that was supported by a small grant-giving charity that they have no direct link with science necessarily, but they're interested in education in that part of the world. So those sorts of sources will be, I think, invaluable for us going forward. To your latter point, we had Sofian and I, and he'll attest to it, our socially distanced walks around the park during COVID, I think allowed us to clarify probably what our expectations were, what we wanted to achieve. And then really, when I went back to the drawing board, we kind of discovered that maybe a non-profit is probably the only actual viable kind of solution for us. And we took a bold step, actually, which was to become independent. We registered as a UK charity. And that, I think, gives us an amazing advantage in many ways, but we're also supported by this amazing ecosystem that we have here on the park, which, as I said, is key as well.
And so in terms of the amount of time you spend on the science and the dissemination versus the kind of grant writing and that sort of thing, what's the balance for you, and how might that differ from the work that Colorifix and PfBIO have to do with their investors and getting new investment? Is there a difference in the balance or not?
I'm sure there is. Something really resonated was that in a startup, you've got to kind of do everything. And you really have, and that's a key difference, obviously, from an academic project position to trying to build a venture, whether it's profit or non-profit. You'll end up doing things that really puts you out of your comfort zone. There's no doubt. I would say there's a temporal aspect to this. So we focused on building a name, building trust, building a network. And I think we've done a fantastic job with that because, we're seeing this network really flourish. But I think over time, the priorities will change, and therefore the time that I spend maybe interacting with potential investors, etc., will increase all the time. I have thoroughly enjoyed my exposure to that world. I'm new to it, but it's been enjoyable. And it's amazing, actually, how receptive those audiences are when you start talking to them about really cool innovation and science that happens on the park. for example. Yeah.
Very good. Sorry, I was getting into the conversation with these guys. You're all listening in. It's more questions. There we go.
All right, thank you. It's kind of a question for all of you, really. So when we kind of talked about setting CMI up, it was very clear when all those discussions happened that it should be a vehicle to support all the microbiology-related activity on the park. And that very much includes local businesses, teaching, non-profits. So now we exist. I wonder if any or all of you or some of you would like to comment about what kind of things would you like CMI to do to help you particularly? And remember, we haven't actually really got any money.
James, do you have a?
So, I mean, we've got a fantastic initiative in July that if you haven't already heard about it, I think you will do, which is amazing because we're co-organising, co-hosting a conference, a symposium targeted at early career researchers from across the park, and happily GetGenome will contribute some global South ECRs as well to that endeavour. So really nice. I would say on a more general point, I know you probably want clear answers, but I'd say on a more general point, sometimes it's the depth of interactions that we form rather than the breadth. So, you know, I've been thinking a lot about networks, and, you know, the very basic version of a network is a mailing list, is a database. It's not overly useful, really. So could CMI increase the breadth of interactions? Yes, but what would be really nice, I think, is if we could increase the depth. So really, how do our network users benefit truly from this environment? Exactly how to do that, there's probably a few ways, but yeah, that's probably for future discussion.
We've kind of thought about trying to identify case studies to exemplify things like that, which might be a mechanism for doing that, that would try and cover different areas and not just kind of, we've talked a lot, I'm just quite conscious until this point, we've talked a lot about kind of academic interactions and trying to look for grant funding bids and trying to raise academic profile, but that's only one part for sure. So yeah, that's really helpful, James. Yeah.
No, I just want to follow up saying that the Explorer Forum that AIP is organizing, for example, could be a good opportunity to do networking and actually come out of the day with a project or something that actually can help academics or industry or other partners. Because we have done this, but well, of course, was not around microbiology per se. There are different topics, right? So there are different people involved, and I think that is a good way to create good connection and prepare the work for the future.
Yeah, it's that deeper connection that James was talking about. So the Explorer Forums are a one-day facilitated discussion. There's one going on today. Monica and other people at AIP, we organise these. They start with like a problem or a question, sometimes from industry, you know, and how can we solve that problem? And then one was to do with virus yellows and sugar beet and using gene editing and getting Tropic and JIC around the table with BBRO and British Sugar. And out of that day came an idea, and then an application was written to Innovate UK, and it's a £1 million funded project at JIC now. So if there's something that you're interested in that you've always wanted to solve, or if you know of an industry partner that's saying, how can you guys help me? If you let us know, we can help to put something together with you and others around the table for a day. And that's where you can go deeper. And the reason I say it's for a day is you can do it as long as you like, but it's really cool that you can solve these problems in a day. I mean, you people sitting there are able to solve these problems in combination in a day. The industry might sit there and struggle. So I love that idea that we've got these great minds. We've got this, you know, CMI cluster, and we can put it to good use, and you can fix things in so quickly if we give you the chance. So I'd like to do more of that. Absolutely. And I think the mailing list and, you know, talking about us being the largest cluster, I know some of you were laughing about that earlier, but that really resonates with industry because they're busy. So why would they bother with us? Well, because we're all here, all on one campus, able to help them fix problems. So I'm really excited about that idea. I mean, one of the things we could say is, why is Colorifix at Norwich Research Park? That's a good example of, what do you have access to here that you can't get elsewhere in terms of microbiologists? I put you on the spot now. Sorry. I suppose that industry says to me they like the skills pool. They like to be able to employ the talent, and they like to use the technology platforms like the Biofoundry.
Yeah, we have taken advantage of the location to use things like the Biofoundry. And other things on the NRP. We've used, I think, sequencing services and the strain storage stuff. So the location is very advantageous in that place. Yeah.
And that comes back down to what you were saying, Mark, about case studies. Because really what people will say is, so what? That's the question you have to keep asking yourself. I'm really good at something, so what? This place is full of microbiologists, so what? Colorifix is here, so what? And it's not rude, really. I mean, it's quite blunt. I don't mean, but the point is that you have to think, what's the value of it? And the deeper connections can give the value to industry to solve their problems, or having that big cluster and making that claim and raising awareness means more interesting projects might come our way. It also means you'll be able to grow your company really quickly here because all the skills are already here, and get access to technology platforms that you can't get elsewhere. So it's that so what answer to that question, I think, that CMI needs to think, okay, we're all here, so what? You're all sitting here, what are you going to do about it this evening on your way home? Was it just an entertaining day, or is there something today that you've thought, okay, I came to the event, so what am I going to do about that? What do you know now that's going to inspire you to do something different tomorrow that might change the world?
Yeah, I suppose also from the kind of, having not been in a business and representing the sort of teaching side of it, I mean, already having that kind of named collection of microbiologists has been a really good advert for UEA, and it's one of the big strengths of kind of like why learn here rather than anywhere else. And I feel very confident when kind of talking to like prospective students that there is that both depth and breadth of knowledge here. I think again, speaking for UEA teaching, that I'm very keen to see more of those kind of direct links. I know that a lot of the companies do kind of, I know Tropic and places hire quite a lot of PhD students from university and like from UEA, and there is that sort of pipeline, but I suppose making that more visible to students and to prospective students, and that kind of that career path, and even going from academia to businesses, and how, because I think it's very easy for students to feel like, okay, I do microbiology and then I do a PhD or I go teach, and they're like the two kind of like options, and actually seeing that they're even just within microbiology, and even just within microbiology in Norwich, there's this like breadth of things that these skills kind of transfer into. So yeah, I mean, how that works out in terms of, careers days or the place, almost something like this, where actually students could attend and see what is available to them, and getting students more looking outside of just the university campus and actually seeing what else is around. I'm very keen to do, and then obviously all the board games I want to design. And
how many microbiology students have you got at UEA?
So our degree course, currently across the 3 years, it's something like 25, I think.
Okay.
We're a fairly small group. Currently, the issue is, instead of Norwich being a destination for microbiology, we're kind of taking students that are choosing between like biological sciences at UEA or microbiology at UEA, and that's the point where I want it to be somewhere that people come to do microbiology, and that we are kind of attracting students on the merit of the fact that we're a microbiological destination, not just we're one of the options.
I think that perhaps we should have invited them today. If we hadn't invited them, they should have come, and we should definitely invite them to everything else, and they should be part of the, that they're part of the number, aren't they? Yeah, and then, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this one was a little bit short for timetabling schedules, but I would.
This is our first one, and we're trying.
Yeah,
you know,
and I mean, even maybe like live streaming something like this, because they might not be able to come for the whole day, and obviously you don't want to take 25 places from academics that maybe need to be here. But
there's a few seats.
Yeah, there is a bit of space this time. But yeah, even just if we could live stream something that they could get a taste of that kind of potential, I think would be really interesting.
But I think if you're included and you come along and then you talk about it with your friends, and people realise that if you come as an undergraduate here, you get treated as an equal and you get insights really early on into career paths and get inspired by what everyone's doing, then more people will want to join. So I don't think it's difficult to do that.
Absolutely. We do have a couple of students.
They've snuck in.
Just pulling them out in the middle of the room there.
Well, can I put you on the spot and say, how's it been for you today?
Sorry, Katie. Actually, they're both Katie.
No. Yeah, thank you for that. As Beth said, it's difficult to get here for the entire day. I was actually on the reserve list, and I've only been here for this afternoon, so I can't comment much. But Norwich is obviously an excellent area for studying microbiology, and one of the things that has been put to us as students is how could we encourage more people to study microbiology specifically as a degree at UEA. So that might be a good question for the panel as well. How can we encourage more people to study microbiology here specifically?
Do you want to answer that one? Touche, she's put it back to you.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I actually think that Norwich and the surrounding kind of areas, we have quite good connections with schools. We already do quite a lot of widening participation. We do a lot of summer schools where schools come in. We've talked about kind of designing micro-specific workshops, but I think my kind of interest is in it being more widespread across the country. So obviously through the CMI and the work and it becoming known as a microbial destination of research, that filters through. But I think it's also actually something about getting teachers to kind of understand the importance of micro and advertising it to their students and kind of, so, if we had CMI designed things, that they could download and use in teaching, I think that would just start planting that seed of microbiology as a concept.
More merch.
Yeah, merch, definitely.
Okay, we've got like 2 or 3 minutes left. I just wanted to think about the other end of the scale. So this is an ecosystem where you want young people involved, we want the academics involved, we want ICUR programs, investment, startups, scale-up companies. And the last question really is about that opportunity to scale and how you do that. And maybe if that could come to you, Kate, and also to Rosaria about next steps and how you really grow the companies here, what you need.
Okay, so we started out in, is this on again? Yeah, we started out in the Innovation Centre only, and quite quickly grew to the point where we were a little bit crammed in there. So we were very pleased to have the Elmay Barnes building as an option, and I was interested about the new building becoming available because now we're spread over 2 sites and there's a little bit of walking backwards and forwards. So getting everyone in one building would be handy. Space and gives you the opportunity to expand, definitely.
And what about facilities? Do you need any other facilities, or will you put those in yourself? Are there things that you need to help you to scale?
So we used to have a scale-up facility in Cambridge, but that is just about closing down now. So, that was a box when we got it. So all we need is the space, and we'd end up putting our own stuff in. But I think infrastructure to expand for people who aren't quite so picky about the equipment is probably good.
Rosaria, what about you?
Can you hear me? Yeah. At the moment, we are embedded at Chat Building here in Jonina Center in the lab of Jake and Andy. And we are a small team, so we are there and we will be there, and our R&D team will probably reach 5 people maximum, but then we will need to find another home for PfBIO, hopefully here in Norwich Research Park, because of course we cannot take the space of academics. And in terms of capability, facilities, what is missing here for us is capacity of ferment our strains. I mean, Colorifix. Maybe I can buy a fermenter from you. But yes, it's something that is missing here. And I remember last year sending an email around to see if there was any fermenters available here in Norwich Research Park that we could use, because of course we do field trials as well, so we need to produce a certain amount of culture that then we can we also need to potentially filter and then change the buffer or other technicality associated with that before then send the culture to the field trials provider. And unfortunately there were none fermenters available here. That is, I think, something we could, the community could work towards. That is something that's very important. And I did ask Colorifix. There was no.
I think your fermenter is going
because you were very busy. Yeah, but I think it's something, because if we want to make our product in the long term, it's something we will need. In the short term, of course, it's too risky to buy a fermenter. We don't know how much production we will make, so we will outsource it. But in the long run, we will need a bigger space in terms of lab and also fermenters facilities.
And these sorts of facilities, the government's alive to the fact that we need them, and there's been various pictures put in to government, engineering biology department and DBT, DEFRA, DCIT. They're all aware of the work that we do here and the fact that if you want the companies to grow, then the larger scale facilities are required. We can't necessarily go up to CPI Wilton or across to Belgium to do these things. We need them in the area. Same with GMP facilities for some of the scale work that we need to do. So, that we're alive to that, and it's something that we're working on to sort of watch this space, I suppose, on that one. James, did you want to have a final comment?
Just a quick one from me. I think to grow, to scale, we need good people. And really that's the rate limiting step at the moment, I would say. We run our whole organisation really from a postage stamp office. We just need good people, and I think I speak more generally as well.
I don't know if you're looking beyond this. There are lots of good people here, is what I was going to say. Actually, I mean, if you want to, when we send our newsletter out or on our website, you can say what you're looking for. And the smart companies have a rolling program of recruitment. They don't wait until they need someone. They want to hear from good people all the time. So you can do that sort of thing. But certainly, if you can't find what you need here, well, I don't know where they would be. So I think we're going to a break now. Is that right? Okay. So if we could just thank the panelists in the usual way. Thanks, everyone. Is there a break now? Okay. And what time do you want people back, Sam? 1:45 to be back. Thanks, everyone.